most people don't know this, but McDonald's, their fries became famous because they cooked them in tallow. And now they cook them in like a list of a bunch of ingredients with beef flavoring.
Yeah.
And there's something about just, returning to that traditional method. Like there's wisdom in why people did things. It helps to use more of the animal for these regenerative farms that we're sourcing from. But it also has such a high smoking point that it prevents the oil. Like even in a really good high quality olive oil, most of them tap out at like 410, 425 and then turn toxic in the heat process. So better as a finishing oil. I actually shoot olive oil, so I'm not like here for the olive oil lovers. I love it too. I'm not hating on that, but there's a place for that. And tallow, there's a really we sear our steaks with it. We're roasting vegetables in it. We're frying eggs in the morning with it. We put it in our scramble. Like it has a place in our life. I think why I love it as a nutrient density play. So bone broth helps heal and seal the gut, so you can absorb nutrients from the good food you're already eating. Tallow, in a very similar way, helps you absorb those fat-soluble vitamins that like Americans are chronically low in. A, D, E, Ks, right? And so if you're eating these nutrients, but you're eating them with like a seed oil, or you're eating them with, no oil at all, right? And you're just like munching on some kale, there's a lot of anti-nutrients, there are absorption issues. And so I love tallow also for the flavor play, of course, but also the nutrient density of absorbing more of the nutrients from the good food you're already eating. I wanted to release this product in 2019. I wanted to call it flavored meat butter. So aren't we glad that like rough drafts aren't, the first thing we launch with. All right. I mean, we'll see. But I wanted to flavor it as well, right? And so I'm a big fan of Chili Crisp. I love Chili Crisp. Sometimes it's called Chili Crunch. And it's always made with a seed oil. And so one of the things I wanted to do and one of the flavors that we released is a garlic and chili tallow. There's no seed oil in it. It's infused right into the tallow, and you can infuse that delicious flavor into the vegetables, the steaks, the things that you're cooking with without making that kind of like nutritional compromise, right? So also things like shortcuts in the kitchen, rosemary and pink peppercorn is another flavor that we have. And just the aroma of the rosemary is so great. And I don't have to go out to my garden and like pick it and chop it. Like sometimes if I choose to do that, that's great. But it's also nice that I can have the delicious benefits and the smell of the rosemary right in the tallow already. So also trying to provide those kitchen shortcuts there.
Wow. So funny enough, Brett and mine's first. So we started the podcast about like 6 months in. We're like, we would love to get a product to market. And so we're going through all the different iterations of what we wanted to bring to market. And the one that we landed on and started to act on was flavored beef tallow.
What?
Yeah. We got a logo for it and everything.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so fun.
Yeah.
It's funny because we have a really good friend. He used to live in town. This great chef, his name's Miles Schneider.
Okay.
And so he's got this big cooking cohort where he teaches people just kind of how to upgrade their cooking game, but do it in a very healthy way. And one of my favorite recipes that he talks about is this like tallow chili oil that he would cook with his eggs. And he said it's like the biggest upgrade for your eggs.
Yes.
So the fact that you literally made that product is so cool because I'm like, I want to make all my eggs with it now.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, it's not an overwhelming flavor. It's like we're building flavor. And I think that's the other thing that it's really hard in like so if you think about Takis, if you think about Doritos, if you think about these like, the way that we experience flavor in America is extremely toxic. Gatorade, like just these sort of it's overwhelming flavor. It's neurotoxic. It's so bad for you. So then if you experience a product that has natural flavor, it's a totally different flavor experience. I think what we also navigate in teaching people as well is like flavor doesn't overwhelm, it builds. So you may sear a steak with the rosemary tallow and be like, I thought the rosemary was going to be super pungent. And it's like it's there, but it's in a way that it complements the steak instead of sort of overwhelming it. And we're just sort of in this culture of like everything is just to the max all the time. My flavor, my taste buds are overwhelmed, and that's why it excites these excitotoxins and I want to eat more of it. And then, oh my gosh, I'm through a bag of chips. So it's been really interesting too, as like a company, people didn't believe when we launched the bone broth initially that there wasn't artificial flavoring in it. They just didn't believe it. They were like, this tastes too good. How are you cheating? Right. And so it's a really interesting, like it's been interesting to play with flavor, to love being in that space, and to also have to be like, no, good food can actually taste good.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
That like good for you doesn't have to, taste bad, but also flavor and the way we experience it, especially in a lot of these like snack foods marketed towards children, it's poisonous. And so how do we sort of relearn what food is supposed to taste like in that context? That's been a very interesting just thing for us as parents, as business owners that are also teaching our customers too of varying ages. It's just been interesting.
Have you read the book, The Dorito Effect?
No.
Oh, you have to read it.
I'm gonna read it.
It's so good. It talks about this concept of nutritional wisdom and just how our tongues are designed to teach us what's nutritious and what's not. And he tells so many cool stories in it. I feel like what you were just talking about is exactly that. It's like we have this innate design that tells us what we should and shouldn't be eating. But we have all these processed foods now that really disrupt that connection.
Yeah. Like they're trying
totally.
Like they're trying
Food
to
scientists.
cheat it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really helpful exercise for anyone that, like, if you're going from processed foods to then doing like a whole foods diet for 30 days, try eating some of those processed foods again. And you can really, like you were saying, I think you were saying when you were sick, your palate got really nuanced where you could tell if it was like grain fed versus grass finished. And the same thing is true with processed foods. It's like that thing, like that sweetness of the Gatorade that you thought tasted so good. You try and taste it after 30 days and you're like, this is like overly sweet, or like my body doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to take a steak with the rosemary tallow and then roast some garlic in there too and just baste the steak with all that. It's probably so good.
It is. It's so good. And so it's also a question of patience, right? Like when we wanted to launch these in 2019, my team was like, hey, these are really amazing, but we don't know that anyone will know what to do with it or what tallow is. And so to sit on this product and to kind of watch the market come to this really on its own, just like, how did we get seed oils? Oh, interesting. Like canola oil is like a byproduct of like a military. I mean, it's like so messed up and gross. And then they had to market it because they had to do something with it and how many times it has to be processed. And then we're eating this and why, right? And just the number of products that are made differently in the U.S. versus Europe. I mean, really anywhere else. And what we allow ourselves to be fed here. I love to see the awakening. Like it is so cool. And I mean, it's 5 years later, right? 2019 to 2024, but I'm very proud that they're out here and I can't wait for people to be able to play with them.
Do you feel like the awakening this time around is like more real in terms of the momentous shift that's happening?
Yeah, I used to make this analogy that when I would try to sell bone broth to people, and I'm like, I'm literally trying to give you something that is good for you. I was like dancing on one foot, spinning 8 plates in the air, like, you're going to love it. And people were like, okay, I'll try it. You know, I mean, it's just so hard to get people to try it. And then they would love it. But with the tallow, it's been like, hey, you know, we're doing this take, I want it. Right. I mean, it's like you barely finish the sentence. Yeah. And so I love that.